killed Stephen Smith. But we are going to keep tugging at strings in this case and related Murdaugh cases until we get answers. Lynn showed exactly who she was during those 6 weeks that she got to take off from her government job. Another thing that disturbs us is what she did the day after the murders. The day after Maggie and Paul were killed, Alex's sister, Lynn Murdaugh, was at Moselle at the house, and her niece, Randy's younger daughter, handed Lynn a bloody towel, and Lynn didn't give it to investigators. Instead, she had it washed. Here is David with what the agent wrote.
Ms. Murdaugh presented Ms. Murdaugh with a hand towel with what appeared to be a small smear of dried blood. Ms. Murdaugh told Ms. Murdaugh she located the hand towel in the half bathroom located on the first floor of Alex and Maggie Murdaugh's residence. Ms. Murdaugh did not associate the blood with the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh because they occurred down at the dog kennels. Ms. Murdaugh had, quote, no inkling, end quote, that anything found in the house would be related to the murders. Ms. Murdaugh did not believe at the time that the person responsible for the murders would have had access to the main residence. Ms. Murdaugh believed the hand towel was either white or yellow in color. Due to the way the hand towel was folded, the red in-color substance would not have been immediately obvious. After taking possession of the hand towel from Ms. Murdaugh, Ms. Murdaugh was not able to recall if she put the item in the washing machine or if she asked Murdaugh family housekeeper Ms. Blanca Simpson to do so. Ms. Murdaugh never told anyone about the hand towel and, quote, did not think twice about it. Ms. Murdaugh advised, in hindsight, she, quote, probably should have told someone.
So how did SLED find out about the towel, right? And why were they asking about this in July 2022? The most logical assumption would be that Randy's teenage daughter mentioned it to SLED or to someone else who mentioned it to SLED. A teenager clearly thought a towel with blood on it could be a significant clue in a double murder. The adult woman whose family has been in law enforcement for nearly 100 years, the adult woman who works in law enforcement herself, somehow had no inkling? No inkling. The fact that this family was allowed back in that house directly after the murders is something the Colleton County Sheriff's Office and SLED should not only look back on with shame, but should be looking back on with a critical eye so that it never happens again, no matter whose house it is. Which officers and agents allowed that to happen? Okay, now the fun part. The part where Alec was caught having excessive pens and sticky notes in his cell during a search on October 5th, 2023. I say fun because it's a reminder that Alec is where he belongs. He's in a very restrictive place where he can't just do what he wants anymore. Also, who knew there was a limit on post-it notes in prison? After a sergeant with SCDC searched Alec's cell, Alec was charged with having contraband. He received a verbal warning, which he surprisingly accepted without fighting. As you all know, prisoners' calls with their attorneys are not monitored. But there's another incident report. This one is from a day earlier when the warden says he was reviewing phone calls and came across one made on August 9th, the same day as the interview, but about an hour after it. That call was placed by an inmate named Joshua Kelly to a number that we now know to be Jim Griffin's cell phone. Here's David with what the warden wrote.
On the call, I recognized the voice of Richard Murdaugh, 390394. Inmate Murdaugh stated he is using someone else's PIN number because his is not working.
Joshua Kelly, the prisoner whose PIN Alec used, is a 37-year-old man, coincidentally also a redhead, whose prison location, like Alec's, is also listed as undisclosed. He's expected to be in prison until 2027. After this, the prison discovered that while Alec was awaiting his disciplinary hearing date, when he had already lost his phone privileges, Alec found a workaround. Here's David with what the warden wrote on August 24th about a call he found that an inmate made to a number that matches the main number for the Griffin law firm.
I, Warden Palmer, was reviewing phone calls and found a call to 803-744-0800 on August 21st, 2023, made by inmate Jacob Hazlitt, 381-849. In the call, inmate Hazlitt states, quote, "This is a friend of A's. He asked me to give you a call. He says his phone privileges have been taken away and he wants you to let J, identified as Jim Griffin, know his hearing is Wednesday." He further states that he, Murdaugh, wants J to send a letter so it can be entered into the record for the hearing. The call concludes with inmate Hazlitt saying, quote, "He also asks for $150 on his account." The female states to let him know she will take care of it. This is a second call on August 22nd, 2023 to the same number. Inmate Hazlitt again is delivering a message for inmate Murdaugh regarding a letter from his attorney for an upcoming DHO hearing.
He pleaded not guilty, and he was found guilty. Like I said, quite the pattern.
Of course, in response to finding out that Peter Strauss was allowed to travel to Mexico, we bought a subscription to FlightRadar24.com so we could get access to flight records for Peter's plane. Now, when Peter asked permission to go on the flight, he said it was to and from Cozumel, Mexico from December 30th to January 4th. And here is an example of the good old boys pushing the limits even when they are already granted something absurd. According to Flight Radar, Peter's plane took off at 2:11 a.m. on December 11th, the day he was given permission to go outside of South Carolina. And what's weird, the entire flight log is listed as unknown. It doesn't say where the plane went or how long the plane was gone, which is odd. Also, on December 30th, his plane, presumably with him on it, flew to Florida, likely to get gas, then stopped in Cancun for 7 hours before taking a 30-minute flight to Cozumel. He didn't have a connecting flight because he was in a private plane, and he just got gas in Florida. So what exactly was Peter doing for 7 hours at an international hub like Cancun while he was out on bond? We also noticed he stopped in both Cancun and Florida on his way back to Hilton Head, and his plane has made several out-of-state stops since then. So, it's a little odd that prosecutor Emily Limehouse, the same prosecutor who put an extra ankle monitor on old Russell Laffitte, didn't think of asking for at least one ankle monitor for Peter Strauss when he went to Mexico, or as he awaits his sentencing.
As we've said before, Stephen was skittish around people, and for good reason.
The same day, me having to, fix his car in the parking lot at the gas station, he sat in the car the whole time while I was working on it. And we were on the phone, even though I was right in front of the car and he was in the car. And I asked him to get out of the car because there was this well-known homeless guy, walking in our direction. And I asked him to get out because I felt uncomfortable. And, of course, he wouldn't.
This level of skittishness, though, struck Stephanie as unusual. But he didn't seem too concerned about the loosened wires at the time. Stephanie believes that someone had been messing with Stephen and undid his battery cables that day. We'll talk more in a future episode about what Stephen's life was like leading up to his death and where he might have been the night he was killed. But the battery raises questions, especially for Stephanie. Was Stephen being targeted? Was he being harassed? If so, by whom? And on the night he was killed, was someone coming to help him? Or did someone else undo Stephen's gas cap? Again, we might never know the answer to that last question because law enforcement didn't think to take fingerprints. Not even after accusations of foul play started to rise up behind the scenes.
Stay tuned, stay pesky, and stay in the sunlight.